Welcome, Listen Up North Carolina. We are here to bring you tools, resources, and information you need to know to be informed on issues that are impacting you, your family, and the community. I'm your host, Mr. Terry David. I'm the president of the North Carolina Head Start Association, as well as the CEO for Chapel Hill Training Outreach Project. Radio family, we want you to be well, and as you know, nutrition plays such a critical role in promoting overall well-being for health and vitality. By properly fueling our bodies, we can energize ourselves and even reduce or prevent illness. With many of us spending more time at home and experiencing the stress of the COVID pandemic, we need adequate nutrition for ourselves and our family. More importantly, nutrition needs are really important during this pandemic. And today I have with us a really special guest, Ms. Ekta Patel. She is the Health and Nutrition Manager at Family Services in Winston-Salem. And so we are so glad to have you here today, and thank you for being here this morning.
Thank you for having me as well.
Awesome. What I'd like you to do first is provide us an overview of maybe nutritional foods and healthy tips for our listeners today while shopping in the grocery store. What could you tell us?
Definitely. Nutritious foods are the food that emphasize on whole grains, vegetables, fruit, and especially lean meats. Pretty much lean meats include chicken, turkey, eggs, and fish. The pandemic that we are in, we are not sure when it's going to end, right? So the best thing that we are doing is wearing our masks, washing our hands, maintaining social distance. But at the same time, what we also have to do is to keep our immune high, because virus can attack anybody anytime. But if our immune system is high, less likely that the virus is going to attack and can make us sick. We also need to support our immune system by supplementing our body with vitamin C and D, which can also get from natural foods. The best goal for now is to make sure that we keep our gut healthy, because our gut absorbs all the nutrients that we eat from the food, and then it also protects our digestive system. So the first thing that we also have to do is watching our sugar. Our sugar is the enemy, and especially the processed sugar that I'm talking about that you find from candy, soda pops, donuts, cakes, and such. At this point, we have a lot of our people and kids especially have anxiety. Kids especially, they don't know when school's going to start back. They don't know when are they going to see their friends. They don't know when they're going to see their teacher. They're missing everything. So pretty much what happens is when we are anxious, science says that we are less likely to get attack on sugar and carbs. So right now it's a peak time when we are so into our sugar and carb-rich food. Most of the time, some tips that I would share with you guys today would be what things you have to do at the grocery stores is to read the labels, because marketing is a big factor right now. We all know that they have such a catchy verbs, packaging that can attract everybody. But as what we have to do is definitely learn to read the labels, because oftentimes the front packages, when you compare, it's not the same as the back packaging. What I mean is the front packaging may say 100% vitamin C fruit juice, but on the back you would barely see that it has 5% of juice. So definitely you want to compare the front packaging with the back packaging. I have seen some breads may say, oh, it's 100% whole grain, but when you compare the back label, it would say the first ingredient would be enriched flour. Yes, it is flour, but it's still not 100% whole grain. So definitely we want to learn to read our labels. So that way we can see how much sugar is in that food, how much calories in that food. I also want to suggest parents to look for fruit that are pre-packed in water rather than in syrup, because if it's packed in a syrup, that means it has processed sugar in it, compared to one that is just coated with water. It would definitely have some natural fruits in it. So always make sure to read the labels. That is something, a great tip that I would like to share. Don't get catchy on the words that says on the front packages. And I'm also a big fan of buying seasonal and relying on seasonal fruits and vegetables. So once the fruits and vegetables are in season, we know it's fresh, we know it's healthy, and we know it's good. And oftentimes what I also do is buy fresh and seasonal, and then I would definitely freeze them to use later.
Wow, that is good advice, Ms. Patel. Going to the grocery store and looking for foods myself, and you talk about reading what the front says versus the back and the ingredients. I think that is really good advice, because I'm guilty of that I'll see something and says, oh, this looks really good. But I never look at the back. So thank you for that good tip. And, you're talking also about fruits in water versus syrup, or I know that bad word is high fructose corn syrup, right?
Correct.
So,
Yes.
and the seasonal fruits and vegetables, I think you make a really good point, and it's going to help our children, especially our families, and make our communities healthier. So thank you. That's really, really good advice. I have a few more questions. Is that okay?
Yes.
Awesome.
Yes, definitely.
So this may sound a strange question, but does good nutrition look different pre-pandemic or post-pandemic? And I know it sounds strange, but I see people are talking about eating healthier during the pandemic, but I would say we probably should do that all the time. I like your take on that.
Definitely. Not only is this pandemic a great stressor for many people, including children, it has created a new level of uncertainty for many people. We know this pandemic has also caused a disruption in our lives and in our daily lives. School being closed, playground just opened, so that means we have less outdoor time. Many of us are working from home and maintaining that social distancing, especially those kids who are huggers and now they're not able to hug their friends and not able to hug their relatives. All that has caused a lot of stress and anxiety in many of us. Being stuck in our houses has also caused complications in our sleeping patterns. Before the pandemic, everybody had a routine. Kids had their routine, children had their routine, and had that consistency in their daily lives. But during this time, kids are working from home. I mean, kids are doing homeschooling, parents are working from home, and that had caused the whole upheaval in the routine. That means our bedtime routine has changed. We spend a lot of time on screening, like watching TV. Kids spend a lot of time watching iPads, stuff like that. So that means that very likely that a lot of us are going late to sleep. That means when we go late to sleep, our body, our digestive system, our nutrition has been affected tremendously. Our brain, when we are stressed, research says that our brain crave for sugars and carbs because it releases that strong stress release hormone, and that helps with stress for some time, but in the long run, it definitely not helping much. Schedules are very important for sleep as well. So the big thing is if you maintain the daytime schedule, very likely that the nighttime schedule will be maintained. Also make sure they are consistent. If the routine was going back to sleep at 9 o'clock, make sure we are going back to at 9 o'clock and not just making a habit of not having that routine. Minimize screen time right before you're going to sleep. I would always suggest at least an hour before. Try not to watch TV or phone because that can mess up our sleep. Try to eat foods that are high in fiber and protein so that it helps for satiety, and kids can stay sleep for long hours rather than waking up middle of the night for a juice or for food or such like that. Parents are working from home. Maybe they're going late to sleep, that means kids are more likely that they're relying on ready to eat meals and breakfast and lunch because parents don't have time to cook as they had time during the regular schedule. And as we all know, ready to eat processed meals has a lot of preservatives and chemicals, and they're high nutrition dense. So very likely that we are laying back in our nutrition. And when you skip the meals because you woke up late or you slept late, so any reason you're skipping meals, that means we are overeating in our next meals. So we always want to try not to skip our meals, have breakfast at certain time, having lunch at certain time, having dinner at certain time. Helping their routine can help a lot with nutrition as well.
Oh, Ms. Patel, thanks again for that. You know, I think it's so ironic how we like to put children on a schedule for food. You know, in the Head Start and Early Head Start program, we have a time for breakfast, we have a time for lunch, we have a time for snack. But adults, we are really bad at our meal patterns or ensuring that we're, as you talk about, schedule. So I think that's really good. I have a bad tendency to eat late, and then I complain that I don't sleep well. And so it's all connected, right? And so thank you for sharing that. I recently had a conversation with a friend where we were talking about prepackaged meals. And so I was encouraging my good friend to look at the label on that because salt is a big preservative. And I said, your sodium content in that frozen meal is probably high. And he was like, oh, I don't know. And so he checked, he said, you got a good point. And so thank you for sharing that as well, because I think sometimes we see it as a time saver, but it might be it may bust our diets, right? Or be bad, or, you know, have us with other medical conditions. So thank you for sharing that. Would you tell us a little bit about what a balanced meal looks like?
Definitely. A balanced meal is pretty much try to eat healthy as you can. Don't use foods to keep kids happy, because that is what we are guilty about it as a parent and a great grandparents and grandparents. We always want to keep our kids happy, so we try to give them food that they always prefer or like. But not doing this every day and making them habit would be a good thing to do. A balanced food will have a variety of different food groups by having good lean meat protein, essential fatty acids, low-fat dairy products, and also whole grains, pretty much. Eating one group, as we all know, cannot compensate for other. For example, eating just fruit cannot compensate what vitamins you get from vegetables. We have to eat variety and from all the food grains. I have talked to parents, oh, does your child eat fruits? And parents often will say, yes, my child loves fruit. Because fruits is sugar, technically it's sweet. So oftentimes we as an adult, even kids, will get attracted to fruit rather than broccoli. So always make sure we are focusing or covering all the food grains, all the food components to count as a balanced meal and not just relying on one. Oftentimes I talk to the parents, their kid eats vegetables. Oh yes, my child loves potato. I always make fun about potato. Potato is not the only vegetable. So definitely trying to eat variety, try to eat different colors, because colors are very important for our body. Every color has a benefit to it. So incorporating colors, incorporating variety is what I would say balanced meal look like. Try to eating variety can also bring essential nutrients that our body knows that kids need to grow and maintain their immune system. Not only that, we also know that a balanced meal can also provide great physical and mental health benefits that we all need this time right now, because we're having less physical activity. Is the only component that can help you with those stressors and will benefit you in long run.
Wow, that's very important. I like what you said about not serving foods to children just to keep them happy. I know some moms who love I won't say some of those restaurants, but they love those fast food restaurants. And sometimes children are not being introduced to new foods. You talk about the different colors. I think it's so important that you introduce new foods to children, and new healthy foods, should I say. So children have that they, I would say, expand their palate, right? So they get to
True.
try and taste new foods, because it's amazing. I think about foods like asparagus. I didn't eat growing up, but I love asparagus, or Brussels sprouts,
Yeah.
and I always said, they're not good, but I said that before I ever gave them a try. And so I think it's really good to introduce new foods, something that we try to do in our Head Start and early Head Start programs, that we're serving nutritious meals, but we are also pushing it a little further to get children to try, new foods, or do it in a different way, like mashed cauliflower versus mashed potatoes, for example.
Potatoes.
Every kid loves mashed potatoes, right? But getting them to maybe try cauliflower because it looks similar, when you serve it, but it's healthier and more nutritional,
Yes.
nutritional value. Thank you. I'm learning a lot here sitting with you today, so I really appreciate.
Thank you.
You. Are there foods or diets that you would encourage our listeners to stay away from?
I'm a strong and a key believer of eating in moderation. I would never say, don't eat this, don't eat that. I would always say, eat everything, but just eat in moderation. Because all the food groups that I just talked about earlier has some essential nutrients. So cutting down on one thing can cut down on other nutrients that we need. The only thing I would always say is to watch your sugar and carb intake, especially sugary drinks, and carb-rich foods, just like chips, donuts, that would only give you satiety for a short time. We want to eat food that is whole grain, so it sits in your gut for a long time. That means we're not going to get hungry, because the more sugary and carb-rich foods you're eating, it's processed very fast, and suddenly in an hour you're going to get hungry. Rather than eating whole grains, can sit in your body for a long time. That means that you're not going to get hungry at all. Stick with natural food. Instead of offering juice to kid, try to have them eat fresh apple. Not only the fresh apple helps in nutrient way, but it also helps for good oral health. Because when you chew those fresh fruits and vegetables, it has fiber. You're exercising your muscles. Your teeth is getting strong. So juice is something they're going to gulp it down and drink, rather than eating helps with good oral health as well. We have to strengthen our immune system right now to combat the COVID-19 pandemic, right? This way we have a chance against the disease, and we won't be just sitting around or waiting for a vaccine, because we're not even sure when the vaccine is going to come out. The only thing right now what we would have to do to combat or to fight against COVID-19 is to eat non-inflammatory foods. What is a non-inflammatory foods is non-inflammatory food diet will help you to reduce chronic inflammation, which is a key factor in health problems and severe major conditions, which impedes the body's ability to restore itself. So to keep a better track of this diet, always make sure to focus on eating a rainbow every day. This means that eating variety in your diet, colors, can help a lot in getting those essential nutrients to fight COVID-19.
Thank you for sharing that. I've been trying to eat a diet higher in fiber, more protein, and reducing sugar. Sugar tastes good, but I know it's not good for us. And so I'm glad to hear you talk about, carbohydrates. I think there's some good carbohydrates, but I also think some bad carbohydrates. And we have to be careful about, what we're putting in our body. So thank you for sharing on that. What are some tips that you can provide for those who have limited resources, who are looking to be nutritionally healthy? I hear sometimes parents say that it's expensive sometimes to eat healthy.
Right.
What I've said though to them, it's also expensive to have medical treatment if you don't. So I like to hear your take on, how can families who may say, "Hey, Miss Mattel, my income is low or my budget is low. How can I eat healthy?"
Definitely. As a manager, health and nutrition manager, I often come across to the situations when parents are like, yeah, we know how to eat healthy, we know what is healthy, but it is expensive to eat healthy. And I often have a takeaway from it. Like, eating healthy, of course, you may think it's going to cost you little, but in the long run, it will save you a lot. And think about the health that you are getting with eating those fresh fruits and vegetables. I always say buy, as I just said earlier, buy seasonal fruits, buy in bulk, and then freeze it. Oftentimes, what I also do is I would buy a chunk of broccoli or celery, and then I would puree it, and then I would put it in ice cube trays, and I freeze it. So later on, when I want to drink that smoothie, I can add that chunk of celery or that chunk of broccoli and can puree it and have a great healthy smoothie rather than to buy milkshake from the restaurants. Oftentimes, food bank pantries also nowadays carry nutritionally high value foods. Try increasing the use of eggs, beans, seeds, frozen fruits and vegetables, cheaper cuts of meat and whole grains, because that can stretch your dollars. I know a bag of beans can cost you $1, but that lasts for good time. So buying those kind of food can also help you to stretch your dollars as much as you can. Not only that, but they also are tasty. They can cost you cheap, and they're always very healthy. Find out when does your grocery stores that you shop have discounts on those dairy products. Oftentimes that helps you to save your money. The best and my favorite thing is grow your own food. You don't need a big you don't need a big gardening. You don't need a good gardening tools. You can just grow in your yard. You can grow in your patio. You can grow in your window without any fancy gardening supplies. Sometimes that also helps because kids want to see where the food comes from. So seeing that plant, seeing how it's growing, a pea plant can help a picky eater that we can talk about it. But at this point, I just want you to tell you is to grow your own food. Something I do personally and I have experience is when I'm hungry and when I go for grocery shopping, I tell you, I would buy things that I would not need it. So I have learned it. Never shopping when you're hungry, because I'm sure you're gonna grab those extra things that you don't need it. Make a list of things that you need and stick with it. I'm guilty about it. I'll make my list and I will forget it in my car, and I would end up buying things that I don't need it, and I'll forget things that I needed. Right now in pandemic, when we are not cutting down our trips to grocery stores. So this is a good thing that you can do if you have limited resources and want to stretch your dollars.
So what I heard you say is we need to be intentional when we go to the grocery store, and we could do things on our own, like run our own food as well. I think that's really good advice. And we, at our Head Start program, we had a garden and children were able to participate, and then they were able to experience the food that they grew, by classroom. So it was a lot of fun to see children grow and see the plant come from the plant stage to, actual harvest time, where they were able to enjoy what they grew. So I think that's really good advice for our listeners today. Just a few more questions. What advice, I talked a little bit about introducing new foods earlier. What advice do you have for introducing foods for picky eaters? All right, and I'm really listening because I'm the pickiest eater. So I'm really listening.
Picky eaters is very common. As you just said, it's so common in adults, so think about kids. It's very common behavior. As we all know, when children, toddlers, young children prefer or begin to say no at mealtimes, they want their independence. They want that freedom to choose their own food. And that's where the picky eater behavior comes from. It's very challenging to get a meal on the table that everybody enjoys. We always have that kind of issue. But the ideas would be, while introducing new foods at a time, make sure you're introducing one at a time. Involve them in cooking. Right now, when we all are at home, cooking is a great activity that involves and helps a lot with picky eaters. When they see that chemistry, baking apple pie, when they see that the liquid turns into solid, it's interesting for them to see that. Oftentimes, involve them in preparation, cleaning, when they are part of the cooking, very likely that they're gonna eat. As a manager, I always go out in the classroom and I teach kids on beans, because beans is not favorite among a lot of our kids. But what I do is I let them play with the beans. I let them show how the beans grow and how the plant come out from that bean. We'll play a sandbag out of that bean. We will do things like that. And very likely when they see that bean, when they touch it, when they smell it, when they play with it, and that day at lunchtime, I would serve them beans. So that way they have that connection. They watched how a bean looks like, they saw a plant, how it came from a bean, and now they're gonna eat that bean. So it's always good when you have that picky eater, or when, even as an adult, when we have that, it's always good to involve with playing, because kids likely to learn, kids likely to eat when it's involved with play.
I think this is really good. I think about a time where at our program we were trying to get staff to eat more healthy as well. And so I was actually making vegetables. So I tried it each day to make a vegetable that people would not normally eat. So now I have people enjoying asparagus, spinach, and Brussels
Interesting.
sprouts. And so I like what you say, but involving people and families in that process, and the children, I think, can really make a difference. So thank you. We're
Yeah.
almost at a close, but I have one more question for you. And tell us, you provided some valuable information today, but tell us, how can listeners learn more and find more resources about health and nutrition? What are some of the sources that you use that you can share today with our listeners?
I would Google is the best resource, but we always want to stay focused with research-based, evidence-based websites. We don't want to just Google anything. That we want to make sure how is research connected to it. So great resources, Internet Engine, WIC department, health department. They have dietitian, they have health people that are working there and can help families to get the resources that they need. Oftentimes USDA, it's United States Health Agriculture Department. They also have a good website where parents can sign in and they can get free newsletters on their email, on text messages, such like that. But not that. Early Head Start and Head Start program always have a dietitian or at least a nutritionist that's working within the program. And they are the best resource that you can get, because they work with the kids, they know the environment, and that they are the best resource to help you find any other extra nutrition resources that you need. Oftentimes cooking, YouTube videos on cooking also involving kids in cooking, and oftentimes a lot of health departments always do a cooking lessons with parents and adults and kids. So there are some good resources there to reach out and get additional resources as well.
Thank you, Ms. Patel. I'm glad you also shared the WIC. Our program, we have a WIC office in our program, and so they've been able to meet with families, help them with nutrition, of course, providing nutritional resources, the eWIC voucher. And so it's been very helpful to children and families who are enrolled. But thank you. I think that is a really, really important, especially for Head Start and early Head Start programs, and new moms who may qualify for the program. You talked about the health department, but I think that's good, USDA. And it's a big goal for us to make sure those families who are enrolled in our program are really, we're supporting them in making healthy choices and decisions, and able to support them with their nutritional goals.
Right.
But thank you so much for your time today. This was
Thank you
very
for having me.
informational. You provided some great resources and some good content for us. And I hope the listeners today gain some new information and will make a commitment to eat healthier, especially during this pandemic, but to keep it, past this so that, we're healthier and our bodies, we're performing at optimal levels. So, radio friends, our time is up. Please meet us next Saturday for more valuable information. To find out more about your local community action agency or Head Start program, you can visit www.nccaa.net or www.headstartnc.org. Until next week, be safe and listen up, North Carolina. Thank you.